You wake up choking, not from a dream, from actual smoke. The air is thick, sour, and full of floating ash. You cough, sit up, and slam your head straight into a wooden beam. Welcome to the 9th century, where the mattress is straw, the roof leaks, and someone just rolled over and sneezed directly into your blanket. Your first thought, I can survive this. Your second, why is the floor breathing? Then you realize you're lying next to a goat, and it's using your leg as a pillow. Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. You're about to spend 24 hours, just one full day, inside a real Viking longhouse, in the dead of winter, with no prep, no modern comforts, and no clue how anything works. You'll eat what they eat, sleep how they sleep, try to follow their rules. And spoiler alert, it's going to go very badly for you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing which corners of the world we drift through together. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The fire's dying. The cold is rising. The goat is still staring at you. Time to start your day. The longhouse smells like old sweat, wet fur, sour ale, and something that might have once been cheese. You're lying on a flattened sack of straw that hasn't been changed since the last solstice, surrounded by snoring bodies and scattered livestock. Every breath feels like inhaling a campfire through a dirty sock. You blink through the haze. Somewhere in the dark, someone is loudly chewing dried meat. You're not sure if it's a person or an animal. Honestly, at this point, you don't want to know. You sit up, trying not to make noise, and promptly step in something wet. You freeze. It's either goat urine or spilled broth. Neither is great. Your bare feet are numb already, and the chill coming in from the warped wooden walls is slicing through your tunic like a blade made of frostbite. There's a ragged blanket tangled around your legs, but it's shared with at least 2 other people, and possibly the goat. It's hard to tell where the bedding ends and the livestock begins. The layout of the longhouse isn't designed for your comfort. It's a communal rectangle, about 60 feet long, with no interior walls and no privacy, just rows of sleeping mats and the dull orange glow of a hearth fire dying at the center. A few low benches line the sides and overhead. Slabs of meat and strips of fish are hanging from the rafters to smoke. You hope that's all that's hanging. Your clothes are damp. The wool tunic sticks to your skin like a wet towel. And you swear it wasn't this itchy yesterday, which is impressive, considering yesterday was also awful. You scratch, then stop, realizing you may now have fleas or lice or both. Honestly, it's not a competition. Somewhere near your feet, a child stirs and starts crying, quietly at first, then louder. A woman nearby groans, curses softly in Old Norse, and pulls the baby toward her chest. You catch a whiff of something fermented and sharp, maybe her breath, maybe her breakfast. Either way, your stomach flips. You try to stand. Your knees crack. Your back makes a sound like a boat hull straining against the tide. You've been sleeping on a wooden platform layered with straw, fur, and approximately 4 centuries of crusted history. You were hoping to slip out quietly, but the longhouse has other ideas. You knock over a wooden bowl as you rise. It clatters loudly. Instantly, 3 heads turn toward you. One of them growls. Might be a dog, might not be. The cold wraps around you like a second skin. There's no insulation. The timber walls leak air through every crooked joint. You can see your breath as you exhale. You can taste the soot in the air. Someone to your left hawks phlegm into a corner. It's still dark outside, but the longhouse is waking up, and so is the chaos. Historians still argue whether longhouses had separate sleeping quarters for higher status folks. Yours definitely doesn't. You're shoulder to shoulder with warriors, kids, elderly, and livestock. No doors, no curtains, just hay, body heat, and a prayer. You shuffle toward the hearth. The coals glow faintly under last night's ash. A man with a beard that looks like it's been dipped in bacon grease is stoking the fire with a charred stick. He doesn't look at you, but mutters something under his breath, probably about you. You nod politely. He spits into the flame. Smoke billows up and curls beneath the roof, caught by low-hanging beams blackened with years of soot. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof that barely vents anything unless the wind is perfectly aligned. Which it isn't. Your eyes start to sting. Your nose starts to run. You wonder how people didn't just drop dead from living in this giant smoked meat sauna. The fire sparks briefly to life. A few others groan and stir in their bedding. Someone nearby lets out a long, slow fart. The goat bleats in response. You glance toward the exit. It's not a door, just a heavy wool curtain that blocks the worst of the wind. Maybe beyond it lies frost, mud, and more frost. But if you want to breathe fresh air or find a place to, relieve yourself, you're going to have to go out there. You sigh. Pull your tunic tighter and prepare to venture into the freezing unknown. 1 hour down, 23 to go. You pull the curtain aside and immediately regret it. The outside air slams into your face like a slap made of knives. It's colder than you thought possible, so cold it makes your teeth ache. Your breath turns into smoke. Not mist. Actual smoke. You're beginning to wonder if your lungs are freezing mid-exhale. The ground is hard and uneven under your bare feet. There's no path, no cobblestones, just frozen mud, shards of straw, animal droppings, and something that might be last night's soup. You shuffle forward, wrapping your arms around yourself, praying the breeze won't go straight through your tunic. Which, of course, it does. You spot a few other early risers already outside, most of them grumbling or scratching various body parts. One man is crouching behind a pile of logs, doing what you hope is his morning ritual. You avert your eyes. Unfortunately, he doesn't return the favor. And here's where it gets truly humbling. There's no toilet, not even a designated area, just a general understanding that if you walk far enough from the Longhouse, no one will yell at you. Unless you go in someone's sacred spot, that's a real thing. You find a half-frozen patch of ground behind a low fence made of loosely lashed branches and decide this is as good as it's going to get. A curious chicken watches you the whole time. It doesn't blink. You do your business while trying not to fall over or freeze solid. Historians still debate whether Viking households used chamber pots or simply braved the cold each morning like this. In your case, there's definitely no chamber pot unless someone has mistaken a cooking pot for one, which is entirely possible and deeply concerning. You fumble through the stiff folds of your tunic, trying to find something, anything, to wipe with. There's nothing. You glance around and spot a crumpled piece of wool that may have once been part of someone's sock. It's frozen stiff. You let out a long, internal scream and make do as you're pulling your tunic back down. A goat wanders past you with the confidence of a nobleman and the stink of old milk. You nod politely. The goat snorts. You stumble back toward the Longhouse, now fully awake and deeply humbled by the morning ritual. Your feet are wet. Your dignity is cracked like the ice on your sleeves. Someone laughs at you as you re-enter through the curtain, but you don't know enough Norse to understand what they said. Still, the tone was universal. Inside. The Longhouse is no warmer, but at least it blocks the wind. A few people are now awake and moving, tossing logs onto the hearth or rummaging through sacks of food. Someone is trying to milk a sheep indoors, and the sheep is not enjoying it. A toddler pees into a bucket without looking up from his chunk of stale bread. Efficiency. A woman shoves a bowl into your hands. It's wooden, slightly cracked, and still sticky from last night's stew. Inside, something grayish and lumpy. Porridge. If you're feeling generous, gruel. If you're being honest, there are a few flecks of what could be barley, and a strong scent of sour goat milk. No spoon. You're expected to slurp your way through it like everyone else. You sit near the fire, trying to find a spot that isn't already taken. A boy pushes your knee with his foot to make space. You nod thanks. He burps in response. The first mouthful of breakfast tastes like sadness and burnt hay. The second isn't better, but you eat it anyway. Because you didn't exactly stock up on protein bars before getting dropped into a Viking winter. Someone hands you a rough chunk of bread. It's hard enough to be used as a weapon. You try to soften it in the gruel, which sort of works. But now everything smells vaguely of goat again. The drink is a kind of weak ale, sour, cloudy, and slightly warm. It has chunks. You pretend not to notice. As you eat, you notice a woman across the hearth staring at you. Her hair is braided and pinned up with what looks like a bone needle. Her expression is unreadable. She's either trying to figure out where you're from or why you're still alive. She whispers something to a man beside her, who glances at you, then shrugs. You're being evaluated. That much is clear. A child runs past you, nearly knocking over the stew pot. He's barefoot and wearing what looks like a miniature version of your own tunic, woolen, patched, and probably shared between siblings. He laughs as he runs. You shiver harder. One of the elders begins mumbling into the fire. You think it's a prayer or a curse, maybe both. A woman claps rhythmically as she stirs a pot of what looks like mashed turnip. Someone sharpens a blade nearby. The scraping noise sends shivers down your spine, not just from the sound, but from the realization. Everyone here carries a knife. You do not. You finish your gruel as best you can, wiping your mouth with your sleeve and pretending not to gag on the aftertaste. There's no trash can. You just set your bowl on the floor and hope someone else knows what to do with it. That seems to be the system. As the Longhouse fills with the clatter of morning tasks, hauling water, stoking fire, skinning fish, you realize your day has officially begun. And the long, uncomfortable truth sets in. You're not a guest here. You're part of the household, which means you've got chores to do. And if you're lucky, someone might even tell you what they are. No one tells you what to do. They just start handing you things. First, it's a dented wooden bucket, then a rusted iron hook attached to a length of rope, then a sideways look that clearly means, get moving. You clutch the bucket and look around. Everyone else seems to know exactly what's expected of them. You do not. A teenager, barefoot, somehow not shivering, points toward the curtain with his chin and mimes a pumping motion. Water. You're on bucket duty. Outside again. The wind's even sharper now. It slices through the gaps in your tunic like 1,000 tiny knives dipped in snowmelt. You follow a narrow, icy path behind the Longhouse toward what looks like a small stream, or maybe a drainage ditch. Either way, it's got water in it and ice around the edges. You lower the bucket slowly, trying not to slip. The bank is uneven and slick with frozen mud. You kneel carefully, lean out, and dunk the bucket into the frigid water. Success. You lift it out. It weighs about 20 pounds, maybe more. Your fingers immediately begin to ache as you trudge back toward the Longhouse. Your arms tremble from the effort, halfway there. You slip on something, possibly a combination of goat droppings and ice, and land hard on one knee. The water sloshes out. Your sleeve gets soaked. You don't scream, but you do whisper a very heartfelt why. You go back to refill the bucket. The same teenager who sent you out watches from the doorway. You're not sure if he's smirking or just squinting against the cold. Either way, he offers zero help. The Vikings, it seems, are big on self-reliance and maybe a little light hazing when you finally stagger back inside, soaking wet and out of breath. No one congratulates you. A woman snatches the bucket from your hands and immediately dumps it into a cauldron hanging over the hearth. She doesn't even look at you. Your reward? A new chore. The same woman pushes a stack of firewood toward you and gestures to the storeroom. You're guessing it's your job now to restock the pile. Great. You stumble to the back room, which is even darker and colder than the main hall. Here, the smell changes. Less smoke, more mildew. The firewood is damp and unevenly cut, stacked under bundles of drying herbs and a pile of half-cured hides. Something squeaks and scurries across your foot. You pretend not to notice as you gather an armload of wood. You catch your reflection in a piece of polished metal, maybe a shield, maybe a cooking pan. Your face is gray with smoke, your hair sticking up in several directions, and your eyes, wide, haunted, possibly permanently traumatized. You sigh, hoist the firewood, and shuffle back to the hearth. By now, more of the household is awake. The noise has grown, talking, laughing, arguing. The hearth crackles with life. A few people are eating, others are sharpening tools, braiding rope, or stitching clothing. You have no assigned space, no personal belongings, and absolutely no idea how they all function on so little sleep and so much salted fish. You're handed another object, a heavy broom made from bundled twigs tied to a stick. The woman with the baby gives you a look. You get it. Time to sweep. You begin awkwardly brushing the floor. Every motion kicks up dust and bits of straw, creating a swirling cloud of mystery particles. A man shouts something at you in a scolding tone. You stop immediately. A younger girl demonstrates shorter strokes. Push toward the fire, not away. You nod. Try again. Better. Sweeping doesn't seem dangerous until you poke something under a bench and it growls. You back away quickly. No one reacts. You decide not to poke it again. You're halfway through your third chore when a door you didn't even notice creaks open. A blast of icy air rushes in, and a huge man ducks through the frame, stomping snow from his boots. His fur cloak is soaked, and he carries what looks like a dead animal, possibly a fox, possibly a very unlucky cat. Either way, it's dripping. He drops the carcass near the fire and begins barking orders. Everyone listens. He must be the head of the household, or at least the biggest personality in the room. He notices you and pauses. You freeze, literally and metaphorically. He says something in a booming voice. You don't understand a word, but it ends with a laugh. Some of the others laugh too. You force a smile. The girl with the broom hides her face behind her hand. The man nods once at you and keeps walking. You're not sure what just happened. Maybe he called you a good-for-nothing. Maybe he called you a pet. Either way, it's probably better than being ignored. You go back to sweeping, but your arms are sore, your fingers numb, and your back is protesting loudly. You pause to stretch and accidentally knock over a stack of carved wooden cups. They clatter loudly. The noise silences the room for a moment. You freeze again. Then, miraculously, everyone goes back to their business. Historians still argue whether chores in Viking homes were divided strictly by gender or shared, depending on the season and household needs. In your case, it seems the rule is simple. If you're breathing, you're working, you finish sweeping, not well, but not disastrously either. The dust settles, the fire crackles. You take a moment to sit on a low bench and catch your breath. Then someone hands you a knife, not to eat, to work. The blade is small, chipped, and slightly greasy. Your new task, clean fish. A pile of them waits on a board, cold, slimy, and staring. You've never cleaned a fish in your life, but that's a problem for you. Right now, the fish are cold. They're also very, very dead. You, unfortunately, are neither. You sit in front of the chopping board with a dull knife, a pile of gutted, half-frozen fish, and absolutely no idea what you're doing. The woman next to you is slicing through fish like a machine. Guts fly in neat arcs into a bucket at her side. You, on the other hand, just stabbed your fish in the eye, and now your knife is stuck. You wiggle the blade. The fish flops over in a mockery of dignity. The woman glances at you, sighs in the way only someone truly disappointed can, then reaches over and yanks the knife free with one quick tug. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't need to. You try again, this time attempting to mimic her movements. Thumb behind the gill, blade down the belly. That's the theory. The reality is you've just spilled half the fish's insides across your own knees. The smell hits like a slap, rotten, fishy, and something disturbingly like vinegar. You gag, silently. You beg for this to end quickly, but it doesn't. There are at least 15 more fish in the pile. As you hack your way through fish number 3, you glance around. The Longhouse has fully come alive. Children are chasing each other with wooden spoons. A dog is licking the edge of a cooking pot. 2 older men are sitting in the corner, sharpening tools while arguing about whether someone named Bjorn actually killed a bear or just claimed he did. Historians still argue whether Vikings exaggerated their sagas for prestige or told them as is, judging by the smug way the man says, "with my bare hands." It's safe to say storytelling embellishment was alive and well. You finally managed to gut a fish without spilling half of it on yourself. It's not pretty, but it's progress. The woman next to you notices and gives a small nod. A victory. A cold, slimy victory. But you'll take it. Then someone yells. It's the teenager from earlier, the one who watched you fall on the ice. He's waving something in the air, a wad of your clothing, your spare shirt, damp and frozen, now being used as a rag to mop up spilled ale near the hearth. You freeze, not because of the shirt, well, yes, because of the shirt, but because everyone is looking at you again. This is not a good sign. The older man from earlier, the big one with the fox cape, walks over, glances at the rag, then at you, then back at the rag. He says something that sounds suspiciously like a question. You shake your head. He says it again. Louder, you shake your head harder. The woman next to you mutters something. The big man grunts. Then, with a shrug, he throws your shirt onto the fire. You're too stunned to react. The fire hisses. Your one clean layer goes up in smoke. You try to protest, but your mouth just opens and closes like, well, the fish you've been mangling. Another man chuckles. Someone says something in a sing-song voice. The tension passes. You are, apparently, not in trouble. But your shirt is gone forever. Welcome to communal living. A new smell wafts through the air. Wood smoke mixed with baking bread. You look over and see someone pulling flat rounds of barley bread from a stone slab near the fire. Your stomach growls. Loudly. You're handed a piece. It's dense, rough, and hot enough to sting your fingertips. You bite in. It's dry and chewy, but after the fish gut incident, it tastes like heaven. You chew slowly, trying not to cry. As you eat, the noise level rises. More people are crowding around the hearth. Someone's carving bone into a comb. Another woman is spinning wool with a drop spindle, her hands moving in an endless loop. You watch the rhythm and wonder if she ever stops. Probably not. Then, suddenly, silence. The curtain to the outside pulls back, and a new figure steps in. He's younger than the fox-caped man, but dressed even finer. A long wool cloak trimmed with fur, a silver brooch shaped like a serpent. He doesn't stomp like the others, he glides. And everyone notices this, you assume, is the Jarl, or at least someone dangerously close to that title. He scans the Longhouse, his eyes resting on each person in turn. You try to avoid his gaze, but fail. He sees you. You smile. He does not. He walks slowly through the room, speaking softly to various household members. People nod, bow slightly, or back away respectfully. When he reaches the fire, he stops and holds out his hands to the heat. Someone offers him bread. He accepts it with a nod. He breaks it in half. He eats one piece. And then, just as you're thinking this is the most dignified human you've seen all day, he tosses the other half to the dog. No one reacts. Apparently, this is perfectly normal. You, on the other hand, have just watched a dog eat a better meal than you. The Jarl finally speaks. His voice is low, deliberate. Everyone listens. It's probably an announcement, or a command, or maybe a warning. Whatever it is, it causes a ripple of energy through the room. Then he points at you. Everyone turns. You panic. He gestures toward your belt. You glance down, wondering if something's wrong. Then you realize you're still holding the fish knife, and you're holding it upside down, like a spoon. The Jarl says something with a raised brow. A couple of people laugh. One kid snorts and says something that you're sure is a joke at your expense. You want to disappear, or fall through a time portal, or hide inside the fire. Historians still debate how formal interactions were between commoners and Jarls, especially when one of the commoners is an exhausted, confused, fish-smeared outsider from the future. But based on the current vibe, awkwardness is universal. The Jarl says one final thing, then turns and walks out, just like that. The room exhales. You set down the fish knife, slowly, carefully, hoping no one hands you anything else today. You're still thinking about the Jarl, or rather, about how you managed to become the most talked about disaster in the Longhouse by simply existing. You don't know what he said, but you're pretty sure it wasn't, "What a capable young visitor." More like, does he know which end of the knife goes into the fish? No one says anything to you directly, but they look, oh, do they look? Sideways glances, whispered comments. One guy outright stares at you for a full minute while eating dried meat. You hope the shame will fade with time. It does not. Instead, a new man, older, lean, and definitely not smiling, calls you over. His voice is gravel and command. You hesitate. He repeats the call. You obey. He hands you a bundle of tangled ropes and nods toward the door. Great, you're going outside again. This time, it's not for water, it's for something worse. Animal duty. You follow him through the snow-choked yard to a small, sagging structure, half stable, half barn, all disgusting. Inside, the temperature rises slightly, but so does the stench. Manure, wet hay, fur, and something musky you can't identify. You barely step inside before you slip, again, right into a fresh pile of something unspeakable. You groan. The older man doesn't react. He tosses the rope beside a pen full of sheep and points to a trough. You figure out what he means. Fill it. With what? You're not entirely sure, but you find a bucket and start the now familiar routine of hauling icy water back and forth, while sheep stare at you like you're the least competent creature they've ever seen, and they know a few. Next, you're guided to a pig pen. The pigs are not friendly. One snorts and charges the fence just for fun. You flinch. The old man chuckles. You do not chuckle. Then, the goat returns. You recognize it immediately, the same goat that slept on your leg earlier, the one that looked into your soul. It's back, and it's clearly decided you are its least favorite human. As you step into the feeding area, the goat lowers its head and charges. You yelp, stumble backward. drop the feed bucket, and land in yet another puddle of muddy ice and sadness. The goat claims victory by climbing on top of a bale of hay and sneezing directly in your direction, not at you. In your direction. It's personal now. The old man shakes his head, mutters something under his breath, and leaves you alone in the pen, possibly forever. Historians still debate whether livestock were considered part of the family in Viking households, based on this experience. It's clear they might have been more respected than certain guests, eventually. You finish feeding the animals, poorly, unevenly, and with minimal eye contact. You return to the Longhouse smelling like a soggy midden heap. One of the kids points at you and makes a noise that can only be described as a bleat. The other kids laugh. You've been assigned your new role. Goat boy. You sit near the fire again, trying to dry your sleeves without catching them on actual flame. Someone hands you a bit of dried fish skin. You nibble at it without tasting anything. Your dignity is long gone, and your appetite has mostly gone with it. Then comes the next horror, mending work. You're handed a small pile of wool, a wooden spindle, and a few crude iron needles. A woman explains something to you in a slow, slightly mocking tone. You nod as if you understand. You absolutely do not. The task seems simple. Spin the wool into thread, then stitch a tear in a tunic. The spindle is just a stick with a weight, but after 5 minutes your wool is tangled, your fingers are bleeding, and the spindle has rolled across the floor and under someone's bed. You try to retrieve it quietly, crawling between the fire and a storage bench. You find it, along with an entire family of spiders that you politely ignore. As you back out, your head knocks against a hanging ladle, which clangs against a shield, which topples a stack of bowls. The room pauses again. You freeze again. A few people exchange glances. One man mutters something that sounds suspiciously like cursed. A woman near the fire rubs her temples. You retreat to your corner with your wool and accept your fate. Still, you try again. One slow twist at a time. The wool pulls, snags, snaps. The thread breaks. You start over. Your fingers are stiff and useless. The room is dim. Smoke curls around you. Someone laughs. After an hour, you have produced 4 inches of twisted, lumpy thread and 1 tiny stitch. The woman from earlier examines your work, snorts, and pats your head like a confused puppy. You've been here barely half a day. Your clothes are soaked. Your skin itches. Your stomach is only sort of full. And now your job is spinning string until your fingers fall off. You try to think of something positive, something that makes this worthwhile. You come up empty. Historians still argue whether daily life in a Viking longhouse built resilience or just shaved years off your lifespan. You're leaning toward the second option. You curl into yourself, warming your fingers by the fire, and try not to make eye contact with the goat, who is back at the doorway, watching, always watching. The goat is still watching you. You shift slightly on the bench, trying not to meet its eyes. It's standing in the doorway of the longhouse like a furry gatekeeper, framed in the morning frost, a half-frozen turnip dangling from its mouth like a trophy. Its stare is deep, unsettling, personal. You could swear it remembers the time you stepped on its foot. That happened 3 hours ago. You said sorry. It has not forgiven you. Inside. The longhouse is at full morning volume. A child shrieks with laughter while chasing another around the fire pit. A dog barks at a pot. A woman yells at a man who dropped something, and the man yells at the floor as if it betrayed him. The smell is now equal parts wood smoke, boiled onions, and wet animal. You, meanwhile, are curled into yourself near a low bench, trying to scrape fish guts off your sleeves with the corner of a wooden comb someone left lying around. It doesn't work. If anything, you've just made it worse. Your stomach growls, but no one offers food. You consider trying to sneak a second chunk of barley bread, but the memory of how your last act of initiative ended, namely, being silently judged by a toddler wielding a butter knife, makes you think twice. Then, out of nowhere, someone tosses a bundle of cloth into your lap. You blink. It's a tunic. Clean. Sort of. A woman gestures toward a darker corner of the Longhouse and mimes changing clothes. You nod and rise slowly, realizing that your current outfit smells like moldy trout and probably looks worse. You creep behind a half-hanging wool curtain and do your best to change with a shred of dignity. There's no privacy, really, just the polite fiction of not looking directly. The new tunic is drier than the last one, but scratchier. The belt is a single length of twisted rope. The sleeves are uneven. You wonder if this is a spare garment or if someone just sacrificed their least favorite shirt to help the village idiot blend in. You re-emerge and get a few glances. Not quite impressed. More like, well, at least he's dressed now. You count that as progress. Then the curtain at the entrance snaps open. 2 men step inside, and everything changes. They're not like the others. These are warriors. You can tell instantly, not just by the weapons, the swords, axes, and knives that clink as they move, but by the way the entire Longhouse shifts around them. People make room without being asked. Conversations quiet. Even the goat backs up a step. One of them wears a cloak lined with fur, his hair tied in long braids, beard streaked with gray. The other is younger, but with a face like carved stone and an axe across his back that looks almost too large to be practical. They don't stomp. They enter. They speak briefly with the older man, the one who burned your shirt and seems to run things around here. There are no smiles, just nods, a few clipped words, and one long glance in your direction. You try to look busy. You pick up the spindle again and pretend to spin thread. Your fingers are numb. The wool slips. You drop it immediately. One of the warriors approaches you. You glance up, trying to seem alert but non-threatening. He's holding something. A blade, not a sword, a knife. Simple, sturdy, and worn. He holds it out to you, handle first. You stare at it. He says something sharp. You have no idea what it means. But the tone is unmistakable. Take it. So, you do. Slowly, carefully. You hold the knife like it might bite you. It's heavier than it looks, with a leather-wrapped grip and an edge that's seen use. A real tool, or weapon, or both. The man gestures, an unmistakable stabbing motion. Then he points to a sack of hay. You understand? He's testing you. You grip the knife, adjust your stance, and lunge forward at the sack. The blade hits at an awkward angle and bounces off. Your wrist twists, your elbow locks, and the knife lands on the floor with a sad clatter. Silence. He picks it up without comment, spins it once in his palm, and drives it smoothly into the same spot. The blade sinks all the way in. He pulls it out, sheathes it, and stares at you. You prepare for mockery, but instead, he just nods once. Then he claps you on the shoulder, hard. Your bones rattle, your teeth click. It is not a gesture of affection so much as a recognition. This one won't survive a raid. But he tried. Historians still debate whether Viking society respected outsiders who made the effort, or whether they'd simply laugh them off the island, judging by the clap. You suspect you've earned a status somewhere between amusing mascot and semi-useful furniture. The warrior walks away. You exhale. And then, because your life is now a string of humiliations, a 6-year-old runs up, draws a tiny dagger from his belt, and mimics your failed knife move with near-perfect form. He then falls over laughing. 2 other children join in. Even the goat makes a sound. It's probably coincidental. Probably. You slink back to your corner and sit down on the straw mat. feeling every ache in your joints. Your back hurts, your pride hurts, and now, thanks to the clap, your shoulder also hurts. Someone tosses you a bone, literally. It's from a soup pot. There's some meat on it, barely, but it's warm and salty. You gnaw on it while staring into the fire, trying to remember what indoor plumbing feels like. You glance at the goat again. It's lying down now, legs tucked neatly under its body, chewing slowly, still watching, always watching. You thought spinning thread would be the easy part. You were wrong. You were so wrong. The woman places the spindle in your hands with a faint, amused look, like she already knows what's about to happen. The tool is deceptively simple. A carved wooden stick, weighted at one end with a disc of bone. Your task is to take a hunk of coarse wool and, using the spindle, twist it into usable thread. You smile politely, nod. You've seen YouTube tutorials. How hard could it be? Answer, extremely. You pinch the fibers and twist. The spindle wobbles and immediately unwinds itself like an angry slug. You try again. Twist, drop, snap. Try again. Twist, twist. Too tight, snap. Try again. The wool tangles. The spindle spins out of control and flies off your lap, rolling under a wooden bench. You crawl after it, muttering apologies, and immediately bang your head on the edge of the table. Someone snorts. You retrieve the spindle, now covered in soot, and return to your bench with the solemn dignity of a dog wearing a cone. Beside you, the woman is a blur of practiced motion. Her spindle whirls like a tiny wheel of fate. Wool flows through her fingers like water. The thread she makes is smooth, tight, and perfect. She doesn't even look at her hands. You do. Your hands look like they've just lost a fight with a pine cone. She glances at your pathetic tangle of wool and raises an eyebrow. Then, with exaggerated patience, she takes the spindle from you, unravels your mistake, and silently shows you the proper motion again. Twist, drop, pull, breathe. You nod furiously like you're taking notes. Internally, you scream. Historians note that in Norse society, textile work wasn't just women's work. It was vital survival labor, clothing, sails, bedding, ropes. Everything came from fiber. Viking households relied on everyone, even children, to learn spinning and weaving early. Failure didn't just mean a lumpy tunic. It meant someone might freeze to death, no pressure. You take the spindle again and try, and again, and again. After 15 minutes, you have 4 inches of mangled thread that looks like it's been chewed by a raccoon, but you haven't dropped it. That counts, right? The woman pats your knee gently, like she would for a child who tried to eat a candle but learned something. Encouraging, but only barely. You set the spindle aside to give your fingers a break. They're stiff, sore, and speckled with tiny red marks from where the wool dragged across your skin. You flex your hand and yelp quietly. The woman next to you offers a wad of lard to rub on your palm. You accept. It smells like meat. You try not to think about it before you can recover. A boy no older than 10 walks up with a bundle of rope and dumps it at your feet. He says something in a sing-song tone, then walks away snickering. The rope is tangled, frozen in places, and faintly smells of fermented fish. Untangling it becomes your next mission. You crouch down and begin picking through the knots, realizing very quickly that this rope was stored outside. It's stiff and wet and absolutely full of splinters. Your progress is glacial. Your knees ache. Every so often you glance up and see the same boy watching from across the Longhouse. He's eating dried apples and enjoying the show. While you work, the goat wanders in again. You try to ignore it. You really do. But the goat walks right up to the half-tangled rope, sniffs it, and without hesitation begins chewing on one of the loose ends. You tug gently. It resists. You tug harder. It stares directly at you and keeps chewing. You let go. The goat wins. You return to spinning, defeated but determined. This time, you manage to keep the spindle turning for almost 20 seconds before it jerks out of rhythm. Small progress. The wool still kinks. The thread still snaps. But the rhythm is improving. Twist, drop, pull. Twist, drop, pull. Your breathing syncs with the motion for a few minutes. It even feels meditative. Then someone behind you sneezes on your neck and the moment dies. You jump. The spindle drops. The thread snaps. The wool falls apart in your lap like a crumbling biscuit. You sigh. To your left, an older man is carving a spoon from a chunk of pine. He hasn't spoken once, but now he mutters something that sounds like clumsy pig under his breath. You can't prove it's about you, but you know. You just know. You switch stations. A woman motions for you to help her tie bundles of kindling. The twine is rough, the sticks are damp, and your knots are embarrassing. After the third failed attempt, she redoes your bundle without comment and hands you another and another. You keep trying. After an hour of that, your hands feel like tree bark, splinters, blisters, soreness in muscles you didn't know existed. You've lost feeling in 3 fingers. One bundle of sticks has somehow unraveled twice. You've tied one to your own leg by accident. A child walks past, points, and says something that includes the word getter. You've heard it before. Someone giggles. You're pretty sure they've nicknamed you the goat, or worse, belongs to the goat. You glance across the longhouse. The goat is there, still watching, still chewing, possibly still plotting. Finally, someone passes you a piece of flatbread. It's warm, barely dry, definitely, but it's food. You eat slowly, savoring every bite of oat and something that might be nettle. You don't care, then, just as you start to think maybe, just maybe, you're getting the hang of life here. A dog pees directly on your pile of completed wood bundles. Everyone laughs. You stare blankly at the steam rising from your kindling, chewing the last bite of your bread, and realize you've made it to mid-afternoon, and you still have at least 8 hours to go. It finally happens. Someone hands you a blade, not a ceremonial dagger, not a butter knife, an actual honest-to-Odin Viking knife, well used, slightly rusty, and heavy enough to feel dangerous in your palm. Your first thought, finally, I'm being trusted. Your second thought, oh no, what am I being trusted to do? No one explains. They just point to a pile of animal hides near the door, then gesture at the knife and make a slicing motion. You nod, because that's all you do now. Nod and hope. You squat beside the hides, select one, goat, naturally, and try to mimic the motion the others are doing across the room. Scrape, pull, slice. It's not glamorous work, and it's definitely not clean. The hide is stiff, greasy, and smells exactly how you'd expect, like wet barn and failure. You press the blade to the flesh side and scrape gently. Nothing happens. You try harder. Still nothing. The fat clings stubbornly to the skin like it knows you're new. You adjust your grip, press harder, and suddenly, rip. A long tear splits through the hide. You stare at it. The hide stares back. You've ruined it. You look up. The woman who gave you the knife is watching. She doesn't yell. She doesn't scold. She just mutters something to the person next to her and hands you another hide. Great. Another chance to mess up. You take a deep breath and try again. Slower this time. Lighter. The blade drags across the hide like a grudge. Bit by bit. Fat curls up at the edges. Not perfect. Not even good. But better than ripping it in half. By the time you finish the second one, your hands are raw, your back is screaming, and your knees feel like they've been replaced with gravel. You stretch and feel every vertebra in your spine shift like falling roof tiles. Across the longhouse, the noise level has risen again. Someone is sharpening weapons. A group of men laugh raucously over a horn of ale. A girl sings softly to herself while weaving a cord. Even the goat seems content. For now, you try to stand, and that's when you see it. A boy, no older than 12, holding a small axe. He's not threatening you, not directly. He's just showing off. He swings the axe once in a fluid, practiced motion, and buries it into a chopped log like it's nothing. The log splits with a satisfying crack. The boy grins and looks at you. You attempt a polite nod. He responds by spinning the axe in his hand and flipping it into a holster at his waist. Casual, like a cowboy in a saga. You glance around. Every single person in this longhouse is armed. Even the grandma stirring the stew has a blade tucked into her belt. A small one. But still. A few of the children carry tiny sea axes, utility knives used for everything from cutting rope to skinning rabbits. No one looks twice at this. It's just standard. You, on the other hand, are holding a hide scraper like it's a cursed artifact and trying not to drop it again. Historians still debate whether weapon ownership in Viking society was truly universal, or if that's just saga-fueled exaggeration. But standing here, surrounded by toddlers with knives, women with axes, and a goat that looks like it could win a bar fight, you start to believe it. Even the firewood has splinters sharper than anything you've been trusted with. You sit back down and keep scraping, carefully, quietly, as you work. The conversations around you drift in and out. You can't understand the words, but you recognize tone, a story being told, laughter, a dispute about something, maybe livestock, maybe honor, then more laughter. A man gestures animatedly, mimicking a sword swing. The others cheer. He might be telling a battle tale, or maybe how he once slipped on a frozen trout. Either way, he finishes by raising his mug, and everyone drinks. You're handed a small cup, warm, sour, mildly alcoholic. Not good, not terrible. You sip and feel the burn all the way down. It clears your sinuses better than anything else today. Someone sits beside you, a woman this time. Mid-30s, maybe. Hair braided tightly, a long scar down one cheek. She's holding a carved wooden spoon and a piece of leather she's stitching. She watches you scrape a hide and raises an eyebrow. You pause. Hold up your handiwork. She considers it, then nods, approvingly. It's the first real approval you've received all day. You're basking in that microscopic victory when she leans over, takes your knife, inspects it, and mutters a word. Then she sharpens it on a stone strapped to her belt and hands it back. It's sharper now. You're not sure what to do with that. Still, you return to scraping, slightly more confident. The fat peels off easier now. The edge doesn't skip. You finish a second hide, then a third. Your hands are trembling from cold and effort, but you're coping. You pause to stretch again, glancing toward the hearth. A boy is carving a fish with a short knife and humming to himself. Another kid is using a blade to whittle a chunk of wood into what might become a toy or a trap. The line between weapon and tool here is blurry at best, and you finally get it in this world. If you can't carve, cut, slice, or fight, then what are you for? Your fingers curl tighter around the knife, not to threaten, not to fight, just to belong, even if just a little. The woman beside you finishes her leather stitching and stands. She says something soft, not a farewell, more like good enough. Then she disappears into the crowd. You're left with the hide, the knife, and the slow realization that, for the first time today, no one is laughing at you. He returns just before dusk, the Jarl. You don't see him at first. There's no announcement, no drum roll, no horn, just a sudden hush that creeps through the longhouse like mist over a fjord. One moment, everyone's talking, arguing over firewood, teasing each other about who burned the stew, slapping kids away from the mead jug. The next, it's as if the air itself is holding its breath. You glance up from your pile of half-cleaned goat hides and see him stepping through the wool curtain at the door. Tall, broad-shouldered, back straight like a spear. His cloak is longer than anyone else's, lined in soft gray fur. His boots are leather, well-oiled and creaking. The silver serpent-shaped brooch at his collar glints briefly in the firelight, catching every eye in the room. No one bows. They don't need to. They just shift, bodies angling slightly, conversations thinning, space opening up around him as if the Longhouse knows where he belongs. He walks slowly, deliberately, eyes flicking from corner to corner. He nods to the old woman stirring a pot near the hearth. He stops by the warrior sharpening his blade and shares a few quiet words. He glances at the bundles of wool drying on the rafter beams, the neat rows of salted fish stacked near the back wall, and the pair of kids plucking feathers from a limp, half-frozen duck. Then his gaze lands on you. You immediately forget how legs work. You rise slowly, awkwardly, trying not to trip over your own knees. Your hands are covered in grease from the hide you've been scraping. Your tunic is stained with something that might be soot, might be fish blood, might be both. You give the most awkward half-bow in Viking history, managing to knock over a small basket in the process. He stops in front of you. For a long second, he says nothing. You hold up your hide, a peace offering, or maybe a pathetic attempt to show you're being useful. He takes it from your hands, turns it over, runs his thumb along the grain. You try to stand still, but your heart is pounding in your ears like a war drum. This man probably decides who gets land, who gets food, and who gets kicked out into the snow. Finally, he makes a low sound in his throat. Not quite approval, not quite disappointment. Just a sound. Then he hands the hide back to you with a nod and says something. You have no idea what the word is, but the tone is unmistakable. Not useless, not skilled, not valuable, but not in the way. He moves on without another glance. You exhale with the relief of someone who just avoided being executed by social standards alone. Your knees buckle slightly. A nearby woman claps you gently on the back, and someone else hands you a wooden cup filled with something hot and vaguely alcoholic. You sit down again, trying not to spill your mystery drink, and take your first full breath in 10 minutes. Historians still puzzle over the daily behavior of Viking elites like Jarls, how involved they were in domestic life, how they interacted with common households, and whether their presence inspired pride or quiet panic. Tonight, you've experienced the answer, both. With the Jarl's brief inspection concluded, the energy in the Longhouse shifts again. The tension thaws, conversations resume, louder this time. Someone pokes the fire. The shadows on the walls dance in time with the flames. The last light of the day bleeds through the door curtain, orange fading to gray. Night has arrived. Dinner is whatever didn't burn, freeze, or spoil. You're given a wooden bowl with something that might be turnip stew, a crust of barley bread, and surprisingly, a sliver of smoked meat. Pork. Maybe, or very determined rat, you don't ask. You eat quietly while the Longhouse fills with a different kind of noise. Rhythm. Someone taps a spoon against a bowl. Someone else hums. The fire pops, and a baby babbles from across the room. Then a voice cuts through, a woman's, deep and clear, like stones rolling in a stream. She's telling a story, not just any story, a saga. Everyone listens. Even the goat lifts its head. Her hands move as she speaks, mimicking swords, waves, falling snow. Her voice rises and falls like wind on a mountain. You can't understand the words, but the cadences are hypnotic. You hear the crowd react, laughter, gasps, low groans of sympathy. Her story is about a warrior who climbed a cursed hill to retrieve a stolen necklace. Along the way, he faces frost giants, angry spirits, and of course, a goat with glowing eyes. People nudge each other at that part. You know exactly who they're thinking about. As the tale builds to its climax, she slows, her eyes shine in the firelight. The warrior, wounded, returns home only to find the necklace was cursed all along. His family shuns him. He wanders the forest alone. The wind mourns him. The earth forgets his name. The fire snaps sharply. She ends the story on a whisper. The room sits in silence. Then someone bangs a mug against the floor, then another. The spell breaks into claps and cheers and satisfied sighs. You sit back, warm despite the cold, lulled by the fire, the story, the feeling that, for once, you're not entirely in the wrong place. But peace never lasts. A younger man stands, grinning. He points at you, says your name or, well, nickname. Getter Dringer, Goat Boy. Everyone turns. You freeze. He begins his story. You recognize a few details. Falling in the mud, dropping the fish knife, tripping over a log, flinching when a goat sneezed on you. He acts it all out. Dramatic flails, exaggerated expressions, a perfect impression of your face when the knife bounced off the fish. The crowd erupts with laughter. You laugh too. Because what else are you going to do? Get offended? Challenge him to a duel? You'd lose to a child with a wooden spoon. So you bow, a deep, theatrical bow, and the room roars. The Jarl, from his seat near the fire, even chuckles. You've become the village jester, but hey, at least you've become something. The thing about ancient laws is they don't come with signs. There's no poster on the Longhouse wall listing offenses. No welcome scroll explaining what's sacred and what's just a basket. No helpful villager gently warning you not to step over the threshold with your left foot while chewing. You learn the rules the old-fashioned way, by breaking them, which is exactly what you do at sunrise. It starts innocently enough. You stumble out of the Longhouse, bleary-eyed and freezing, desperate for air that doesn't taste like boiled onions and goat hair. The frost bites your cheeks. Your feet crunch over hard-packed snow. You find your usual spot behind the pile of firewood, your unofficial, unspoken toilet corner. As you finish your business, you turn and come face to face with a woman in a thick cloak holding a carved wooden idol. She's whispering something, eyes closed, her breath rising in little prayer puffs. And you, unknowing, uncaffeinated, and unfortunately positioned, interrupt what is clearly a private moment. She gasps. Her grip slips. The idol hits the ground face first, nose first, God first into the slush. You both freeze. She stares at the idol, then at you, then at the idol again. She bends down, lifts it up carefully, brushes off the snow, and spits, once over her left shoulder, once over her right, once between you. Then she mutters a phrase that is probably not "have a nice day," and walks off without another word. You exhale slowly, back inside. The temperature hasn't changed, but the atmosphere definitely has. People still talk, still cook, still stoke the fire, but now there's a pattern to the glances sent your way, a certain squint, a shared look. You catch fragments of whispered conversation. One word keeps cropping up. Blotta. You don't know what it means. But the way people say it, sharp, clipped, it's not good. You sit quietly, pretending to busy yourself with the spindle. Your fingers move, but your mind doesn't. You're not just the outsider now. You're the disrespectful outsider, the one who mishandled something sacred. You imagine yourself slowly dissolving into the straw beneath you. You consider apologizing, but you don't even know what exactly you did wrong. Was it stepping too close? Breathing on the idol? Failing to spit in the proper direction? Historians still debate how rigidly Norse households enforced religious customs. Some argue daily life was steeped in small rituals and taboos, while others suggest things were more flexible depending on the family. But from where you're sitting, one thing is clear in this longhouse: certain lines cannot be crossed, and you just did a full cartwheel over one of them. You try to redeem yourself the only way you know how, by volunteering for literally anything. Haul firewood, done. Mop spilled broth, on it. Untangle fish nets, happy to. Someone hands you a sloshing pail of slop and points toward the pigs. You nod and trudge out into the snow, nearly losing a boot in the icy muck. The pigs, of course, are in no hurry to cooperate. One of them snorts at you with such judgment, you feel personally attacked. You dump the slop, slip, curse internally, and return inside, smelling like barn tragedy. No one thanks you, but one man grunts in a way that might mean adequate. You wipe your hands, trying not to think about what's under your fingernails, and return to the hearth. You sit quietly, fold your legs, and hope the goat ignores you. But the man across the fire does not. He's tall, wide-shouldered, and missing the top joint of his right index finger. His beard is braided in 2 thick ropes, and one of his eyes is cloudy, maybe from injury, maybe from time. He squints at you, then speaks in a low voice, something steady and direct. He taps his chest, then taps yours. Then he raises one eyebrow. You blink. He says another word, one you recognize from a saga you barely understood. Holmgang. Your blood runs cold. Holmgang. Trial by combat. A duel. In Viking law, when honor is challenged. Men settle it by fighting, sometimes to first blood, sometimes to death. You shake your head. Try to gesture confusion. You wave your hands. Pantomime clumsiness. Weakness. Maybe even a tragic hand injury that just developed. He laughs, not cruelly, almost warmly. He speaks again, slower this time. Then he lifts 2 short wooden sticks from the pile beside him and tosses one to you. Oh, it's a mock duel. You nearly faint from relief. Still, this is no joke. People are watching. A wide space opens near the center of the longhouse. Children scramble to the edges, wide-eyed. The woman who dropped the idol earlier folds her arms and nods slowly. The man steps into the circle. You follow, gripping your wooden stick like it might suddenly explain itself. He bows slightly. You mimic it, hoping that's not a mistake. Then he lunges. You shriek internally and hop back. His stick taps your leg. Point to him. Round 2. You swing wide, too wide, and spin in a full circle, landing on one knee. Someone snorts. The goat bleats. You stand up, brush snow off your dignity, and ready yourself again. Round 3. You land a hit, not on purpose. He slipped on a loose bit of straw and stumbled into your stick. Point to you. The crowd claps. Round 4. He fakes left, ducks right, and bops you square on the shoulder. Point to him. Round 5. You lunge, overextend, trip, drop your stick, and land flat on your back in front of the fire. A perfect ending. The room erupts with laughter. Some clap. One child jumps up and mimics your fall in slow motion. The man who beat you offers a hand. You take it. He pulls you up with a grip like tree bark and slaps you on the back hard enough to reboot your lungs. He says something, loud enough for everyone to hear. You catch one word. Frienda, kinsman, or maybe pet. Either way, it's better than curse boy. Someone passes you a bowl of warm broth. You sip it slowly, steam curling into your face. The woman who dropped the idol sets the figure back beside the hearth, nods toward you, and miraculously smiles. You may still be the fool, but tonight You're their fool, and in this world, that's worth more than gold. You wake to the sound of your name. Well, not your name, your Viking name, which, at this point, is either Getterdrenger, Goat Boy, Sweaty One, or possibly Fish Breaker. It depends who's talking and what part of the disaster reel they're referencing. You peel open your eyes. Your shoulders ache. Your lower back feels like someone used it for chopping firewood. Your legs have joined forces to revolt. You slept curled near the fire, wedged between a damp fur cloak and a pile of straw that somehow had more bones than comfort. Your dreams were full of rowing, falling, goats. Too bad it wasn't just a dream. Someone kicks your foot, not cruelly, just enough to say, "Up, now." You sit up slowly. A grizzled man with braids down to his belt stands above you, arms crossed, looking mildly amused at how broken you already are. He gestures toward the door, then to your arms, then to an invisible oar. No, please no. But yes, today, apparently, you're joining the rowing crew. You follow him out into the snow without protest, not because you're brave, but because you no longer have the energy to argue with anyone in this century. The wind slices across the inlet like a blade dipped in ice water. You squint toward the horizon, and there it is, long and sleek, low to the waterline, with a carved prow shaped like a serpent's open mouth. A Viking longship. It's breathtaking, legendary, and also, unfortunately, the single worst piece of news your spine has received all week. At least a dozen others are already there. Uncoiling ropes, loading bundles of supplies, shoving snow off the deck with their boots. No one's smiling, no one's excited. This is not a joyride. This is muscle taxing, frostbite flirting labor, and you've just been drafted. You're pointed to a bench near the middle of the boat. You sit. A long wooden oar rests beside you, cracked in places, darkened with age, and still damp from yesterday's use. You pick it up. It's heavier than it looks. Of course it is. Then the shouting starts. One man, clearly in charge, walks up and down the line of benches shouting single words in rhythm. Each call is met with a response. Thunk. The oars dip into the icy water. Pull. The boat lurches forward. Pull. Another heave. You scramble to keep pace. The first stroke nearly throws you off the bench. The second one jams your shoulder. By the third, your hand slips and the oar smacks your shin. You grit your teeth. Blood's already trickling from a popped blister. You pretend it's not, and the boat keeps moving. Thump, dip, pull, thump, dip, pull. The rhythm is relentless. There are no breaks, no slowdowns for new guys. You row, or the boat doesn't move. And if the boat doesn't move, you will absolutely be yelled at by at least 3 different people with axes. Beside you, a wiry teen half your size rows like he was born doing it. You glance at him. He shrugs, like to say, just don't fall in. You try adjusting your grip. Wrong move. Your raw palms slide on the wet wood. You lose your hold. The oar drags underwater, threatening to twist out of your hands. You panic, overcorrect, and yank it back into place, splashing the man behind you. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't have to. You row harder. Your arms scream. Your back pulses. Your breath clouds the freezing air in ragged puffs. You begin to understand why Viking warriors looked like walking oak trees. It's not all battle. It's rowing, hour after hour, against the wind, with only dried fish and stubbornness keeping you alive. Historians love talking about how Viking ships were marvels of engineering, flexible hulls, shallow drafts, symmetrical bows, but they often skip the part where human beings had to power them across oceans with nothing but sheer will and occasionally rotten herring. After what feels like centuries but is probably 45 minutes, the lead rower shouts again, and the crew eases off. The oars rise. The boat coasts on momentum. You collapse forward, forehead against the handle, gasping, Every part of your body aches. You're not sure you can lift your arms again. Then someone hands you a chunk of dried apple. Another slaps your back. You wheeze in pain, but the slap feels almost congratulatory. The boat turns. You're going back. A second round. Of course there's a second round. You groan. Adjust your grip and fall back into rhythm. This time, you're a little better. Not good, but passable. You don't splash anyone. You don't lose your oar. You only cry once, and it's internal. When the boat finally beaches on the snow-packed shore, your legs barely carry you up the slope. You collapse near the Longhouse, staring at your hands, blistered, raw, a patch of skin missing from your palm. You've just rowed a Viking ship. You've also possibly lost use of your shoulders for the next 3 days. Back inside the Longhouse, you sink into the straw like a dying seal. Someone tosses you a blanket. Another places a mug of hot ale in your hands. You don't know if you've earned these kindnesses, or if they're just trying to keep you from dying. Doesn't matter. You drink. Later that night, by the fire, you inspect your hands again. They look terrible, like they've been through a cheese grater. But they also look tougher, scarred, used. A young man across from you nods in your direction. Then he flexes his hands, equally raw. You share a moment, no words, just mutual pain and mild pride. You still smell like brine, sweat, and goat. But something's shifted. You're not the strongest, not the fastest, not even average. But today, you weren't dead weight. You pulled your oar, and in a longhouse full of blades, bruises, and silent expectations, that might be the first real step toward survival. The pain in your hands wakes you before the light does. Your palms are stiff, covered in cracked blisters and crusted resin from whatever medieval ointment they slathered on you last night. Your arms throb like you've been in a fist fight with a tree. Just lifting your head from the fur mat takes effort. You think maybe, just maybe, you'll get to rest today, heal, hide in a corner, blend in like decorative furniture, but no. A soft cough interrupts that fantasy. You look up and see her, the woman who spins wool, the one who ignored you your first day, gave you cold looks on the second, and smirked when you tried to use a broom backward. Now she stands over you, hands on hips, eyebrows raised, waiting. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. She points to a low wooden stool near the hearth, beside a basket overflowing with coarse, tangled sheep's wool. Then she makes a twisting motion with her fingers. You blink. She nods. Spinning. You can barely hold a mug. But now you're going to learn to make yarn. Of course, you limp over. She hands you a distaff wrapped in raw wool and a spindle carved from dark wood, polished smooth from years of use. She sits beside you and begins to work, calm, precise, like she's telling time with her fingertips. You try to copy her movements. What happens instead is a horror show. The wool bunches, it snaps. You pull too hard, and it coils into a dense, knotted mess. The spindle drops from your fingers and clatters across the floor. The woman watches in silence. You brace for the eye roll, but it doesn't come. She picks up the spindle, hands it back, and rewinds your failed wool. Then she gestures again, slowly. You breathe in. Try again. Slower, this time. The spindle turns. Barely. You spin lopsided thread, uneven, fragile, but it holds together. A few feet, then a few more. It's almost calming as you struggle along. She spins beside you, her rhythm constant. The wool flows from her hands like water, steady, clean, effortless. You can't match her grace, but you follow her pace. In time, your fingers begin to find the rhythm. Spin, pull, twist, wind. It's quiet work, meditative, but you sense that this is as vital as rowing or hunting in a Viking world of storms, raids, and sharp blades. Thread is what holds it all together. Clothes, sails, nets, bandages, bindings. Historians sometimes overlook the domestic engine behind Viking society. The longhouses weren't just places of shelter, they were micro-factories. Every spare moment was filled. Spinning, weaving, carving, patching, preserving. Survival wasn't a seasonal campaign. It was a daily ritual, stitched together by hands like hers. After a while, others join the silent productivity. A young girl carries in a basket of feathers to be sorted for arrow fletching. A man with a burned forearm grinds dried fish bones into powder for animal feed. Even the oldest crone, nearly toothless, sits stringing onion bulbs with sinew and humming quietly. The longhouse becomes a hive. No shouting, no idle hands, just the murmur of movement, the hum of usefulness. Your thread is still uneven, but it's no longer embarrassing. The woman next to you leans over, tests the tension of your spun line, and gives a single nod. She pulls out a strand she spun earlier, tight, even pale gray, and lays it beside yours for comparison. Yours is clumsy, chunky, but not hopeless. You smile weakly. She presses a chunk of dark bread into your palm, dense, moist, still warm from the hearthstone. You chew slowly, trying to ignore how good it tastes after a morning without shame. Later, you help hang the thread above the fire to dry. The ceiling beams already sag under other skeins. Off-whites, browns, reddish tones, each one a testament to hours of quiet labor. You stretch to hook yours over a wooden peg, watching it sway in the rising warmth. Below, someone calls your name. Your name, not Goat Boy, not Fish Face, the closest thing to your actual name, wrapped in a thick Norse accent and softened at the edges. You turn. It's one of the older men. He points to the drying yarn, says something approving, and then gestures to your hands. They're trembling slightly, still red and stiff. He says another word, slowly this time. Tholin Madi, patience. You nod, back on your stool. You spin more. You've found a rhythm now. Not fast, not beautiful, but real. Your mind drifts as your hands work. You think of how far you've come since the first day, waking next to goats, nearly getting thrown out, almost starting a duel over a blanket. Now, here you are, spinning yarn like a respectable Norse auntie. Well, not respectable, but not disgraceful either. A few children wander by and watch you work. One of them giggles when you almost drop the spindle. You wiggle your eyebrows dramatically and pretend to lose control. They laugh harder. The woman next to you rolls her eyes, but you swear you see the corner of her mouth twitch. The room smells like smoke, wool, and rye bread. The wind outside rattles the walls again, but the fire holds strong. Above, your new yarn dangles beside the woman's, clumsy cousin to its elegant neighbor, but cousin nonetheless. And in this house, kinship of effort matters more than perfection. Even the goat doesn't look at you like it used to. Maybe it's the yarn. Maybe it's the silence. Maybe it's the fact that no one has assigned you to pig duty today. But something shifts inside you. Not pride, exactly, but peace. For the first time since you arrived, you aren't just surviving, you're contributing, quietly, gently, with lopsided string and sore hands. And that, in this cold, candlelit world, is enough. At first, you think it's just a quiet day. No shouting, no goats headbutting things, no one slipping on pig slop or dragging in frozen fish. The longhouse has a hush to it, not sleepy, not slow, just restrained, like everyone's holding their breath without knowing why. You glance around, people are working, but without the usual chatter, spinning, mending, sharpening, but quieter. Children sit still for once. The men mutter more than speak. Even the old dog by the fire hasn't barked all morning. It's as if the entire house has collectively agreed to keep its voice down, and that's when you hear it. Hoofbeats, slow, distant, deliberate, the kind that don't rush or stumble, the kind that arrive only when they mean to. You're at the far end of the Longhouse, peeling roots for supper, when the door creaks open and the air shifts. Cold slips in, not just from the wind, but from something older. Older than the Longhouse, older than the village, older than language. She steps inside. The vulva, she doesn't speak, doesn't need to. Everything stops. The woman is tall, wrapped in a thick cloak trimmed in black fur, long as a funeral banner. From her neck dangle amulets made of bone and shell, some of which you suspect aren't entirely decorative. Her silver hair is braided into long ropes that fall across her chest, like ceremonial cords. She carries a staff, twisted wood capped with a carved raven's head, and it taps softly against the earth floor with every step. She doesn't make eye contact, but everyone sees her. Even the Jarl rises. That alone would be enough to set your heart beating. But then he bows, not deeply, just a tilt of the head. Enough to say, I defer, I yield, others follow. You do, too. No one told you to. But you're not about to be the only idiot standing tall when a literal walking prophecy glides past your turnip pile. She walks slowly, with the weight of ceremony. Her boots are laced with animal sinew, patterned with runes. Her fingers are thin and marked with blue-inked tattoos, swirling in old patterns you don't recognize. She pauses by the hearth. The room holds its breath. She begins to speak. Her voice is low, not quiet, just deep, like it's been echoing in caves before language had grammar. You don't understand a single word, but the cadence is unmistakable. A ritual is beginning. Someone brings her a bowl of hot mead. She doesn't drink it. She passes her palm over the steam and murmurs something that makes the fire flicker. The Jarl kneels. She places one hand lightly on his shoulder, then speaks again, this time faster, more clipped. People start to murmur. You catch a few words. Ingvi, Rukr, Draumar, dreams, fate, gods. Then her eyes open wider and sweep the room and stop on you. The silence intensifies. You feel it like pressure in your ears. She doesn't smile, doesn't blink, just looks, as if reading something written on your forehead in invisible ink. A pulse of cold spreads through your chest. Every thought empties. You forget what year you came from. You forget your name. And then she moves on. She circles the hearth, her staff tapping the ground in a pattern too precise to be random. She throws a pinch of herbs into the fire. Wormwood, mugwort, something sharp and ancient. Smoke twists skyward, thick and sweet. It smells like wet moss, burnt feathers, and secrets. The room dims. The flames shift, orange to green to a strange pale blue. She sits cross-legged, staff laid across her knees. Then the singing starts. Not a song, exactly. A chant, layered, rattling, half sung, half whispered, like three people speaking through one throat. Everyone watches, no one moves. You forget to breathe. The fire pops, and someone gasps. A child starts to cry but is quickly hushed. The goat whimpers. Even the dogs outside have gone silent. The vulva's chant rises and falls like waves. You can't tell whether it lasts 5 minutes or 50. Time stretches thin. Historians still argue about the role of vulvas. Some say they were priestesses of the Vanir gods. Others call them remnants of a much older, pre-Norse tradition. Some believe they took sacred herbs to enter trance states. Others think they simply knew how to command a room and manipulate fear. But there's one thing all the sources agree on. When the vulva spoke, people listened. And right now, no one in this room is doing anything else. She stops. Just like that, no warning, No finale, just silence. She opens her eyes, wide this time, clear and sharp, like two windows flung open on a cold morning. And again, her gaze finds you. It's not anger or curiosity. It's something harder to name. Recognition. Not of who you are, but what you represent. An out-of-place thread in the tapestry. A hairline crack in the stone. A ripple in the surface of something meant to be still. You feel as if your presence has been acknowledged, not by the village, but by the world beneath it. Then she blinks, rises, and walks out the way she came. No one follows. No one speaks for a long time. Eventually, the fire is rebuilt. Food is stirred. A child coughs. Life resumes. But the temperature hasn't warmed. Later that night, you ask the woman who taught you spinning what the vulva said. She shrugs, then makes the sign of Thor's hammer and mutters, "Only the gods know." She pats your arm, not hard, just enough to anchor you. Then she says one more word, almost teasing, "Marked." You lie awake for hours, staring at the rafters. The wind whistles through the beams like distant singing, and for the first time since you arrived, you wonder, what exactly did I interrupt by being here? Something is different. You feel it before you even open your eyes. The Longhouse is quiet again, but not the same quiet as before the vulva came. This is heavier, still, like the air itself has thickened overnight. You lie under the fur blanket longer than usual, listening, waiting, but nothing stirs. No fire being poked, no kids chasing goats, not even the usual cough from the old man with the bad lungs. You finally sit up, and when you do, you notice it in the glances. People don't avoid you, but they don't fully meet your gaze either. Their eyes land on you like someone checking if a pot is too hot to touch. A flick, a hesitation, then gone. The woman who helped you spin yarn still hands you wool to twist, but this time she mutters something under her breath, fast and clipped, before your fingers even touch the distaff. You're not excluded, but you're no longer just the outsider who spilled fish guts. You're something else now, the one she looked at, twice. You try not to let it get to you. You keep working, folding flax fiber, patching a tire in a worn leather pouch, even volunteering to empty the waste trough without gagging this time. But the feeling doesn't go away. No one says it, no one dares. But it hums beneath everything now. You're marked, and not just with blistered hands and bruised dignity, with something older, something none of them quite understand, including you, that afternoon. While hauling firewood with Kettle, the teenage boy who still talks to you like you're a person, he finally asks what you did to get her attention. You tell him the truth. "I have no idea." He squints at you, shrugs, then mutters something like, "Maybe your thread's loose," before cracking a grin and moving on. It's the first thing that makes you laugh in days. But later, as you stack logs against the wall, the phrase echoes, "Your thread's loose." That night, you eat near the fire, and the Jarl walks by. He doesn't speak, just rests a hand briefly on your shoulder, the way one might touch a gate before passing through. Not a greeting, more like a check, a feeling. You barely sleep. When you do, your dreams are filled with birds, not flying, watching, hundreds of them, perched on unseen beams, their black eyes blinking in sync. The next morning, the world vanishes. Snow, a full whiteout, fast, thick, endless. It comes in a rush like the gods finally inhaled and blew straight down from the mountains. The world outside becomes noise and white. The doors are barred. The animals brought in. The Longhouse becomes a sealed cave of breathing bodies and low flames. You help sweep snow from the entry before it freezes shut. Then you help again and again. The third time, you no longer need to be asked. Inside, people fall into a different rhythm. No outdoor work, no sailing, Just tasks that keep fingers moving and minds from unraveling. Sewing, wood polishing, bead threading, comb carving. Then the stories begin. The scar-faced elder, Oscar, starts the first. His voice is gravel ground by time. You sit nearby, pretending to fix the strap on your boot just to stay close. His story isn't about war or treasure. It's about threads. Not the kind you've been spinning, the kind that tie lives to the world. He tells of a winter long ago. A stranger came from the hills, wearing clothes no one recognized and speaking a strange dialect. The stranger worked hard, never asked for much, never caused trouble. But strange things began to happen. The elk migration shifted. A well turned bitter. 2 children had dreams of the same snake. The vulva was called. She said simply, "This man's thread is not anchored in our weave." No one harmed him, but come spring, they built him a small boat, gave him saltfish, water, and a single paddle. And they sent him out across the fjord. No one ever saw him again. No one says this story is about you, but no one has to. After the tale, silence, not heavy, just full. Later, someone places a carved goat figurine in your hand and tells you to offer it to the fire. They say it's a cleansing ritual. Tradition happens every winter. You nod, because what else do? You place the figure on the coals and say the word they give you, skillia, to part, to let go, to divide. The wood cracks. The goat burns. Someone watches from behind you. You don't turn to look. That night, you sleep near the door, not by choice. Your usual spot by the fire is taken, or perhaps quietly nudged away. You wrap yourself in fur and tuck close to the wall, listening to the wind scream against the beams. It's the kind of wind that sounds like a voice just outside the door, always whispering, never clear. You dream again. This time, you stand in a field of thread, thousands of lines stretching from the sky to the earth. Some are bright, some fray. Yours flickers, and beside you, the vulva, not speaking, just watching, like she's waiting to see if you'll knot yourself in or tear free. You wake up cold, the fire's still burning, but no one's near it. You walk slowly across the room and warm your hands. The woman who spins sits awake in the shadows. She sees you. She doesn't smile, but after a moment, she nods. One slow, thoughtful nod. Maybe you're not woven in yet, but they haven't cut you loose either. The first thing you hear is nothing. And in Viking winter, that's the sound of hope. No wind, no howling, no scratching claws of snow clawing at the eaves. Just a hush so deep it presses against your ears like a thick wool blanket. You sit up beneath your fur. Everything aches, your neck, your fingers, your soul. But the silence gives you courage. You shuffle toward the door with the others, all half-dressed and blinking like moles, when someone lifts the heavy wooden bar and creaks open the front door. A thin blade of white light slices through the gloom, then wider, then a gasp. The world is blank, not dead, just buried. Snow rises high against the outer wall, nearly halfway up the door. It's not just on the ground, it's on everything. The fence posts are capped like candles. The trees wear full white robes. The stream is invisible. Only the sky remains untouched, a soft dome of silvery cloud, like someone laid wet linen across the heavens. You all step out, slowly, blinking at the brightness. After days of living by firelight, it's like waking into a dream, and still, quiet, no birds, no voices, just the snow and the sound of boots crunching into it. You grab a wooden shovel and join the others on the roof. It's not glamorous, but if you don't get the snow off, the beams could buckle. Your legs tremble as you climb. You slip twice. No one helps. No one mocks you either. You're not special. You're just included. You work for hours. Your shoulders burn. The leather strap across your chest bites into your collarbone. But you keep going. Every now and then, someone passes you a cup of hot broth and you nod in thanks. No words exchanged. Just breath in the air. Cup warm against your lips. And then back to digging. By the time the sun is halfway across the pale sky, if it is the sun, it's more like a glowing coin behind gauze. You've cleared your part of the roof and 3 walk paths. A woman hands you a chunk of dried venison and a slice of barley flatbread. You eat standing up, snowflakes still caught in your eyelashes. There's no celebration, just work. But no one makes you move aside. No one mutters behind your back. You're here. That counts. By early evening, the Longhouse smells of thaw, not spring, no, not yet, but warm air meeting packed snow, wood smoke curling against melting ice. The Jarl calls for the fire to be cleared and stoked high. You help carry logs, stacking them neatly beside the hearth. Your knuckles are raw, but you don't care. Benches are pulled inward. Furs are fluffed and layered. Bowls of soup are passed hand to hand. And then, without fanfare, it begins. Saga night. No fighting, no carving, just listening. You sit near the edge of the fire circle, still unsure if you're fully welcome. But the old scar-faced man, Asgeir, waves you closer. You settle in, trying not to spill your soup on the woman beside you. Then he begins. His voice is low and slow, more like wind through pine than anything human. He doesn't look at you, or anyone, really, just into the fire. He tells of 2 brothers, born on a night when the moon was hidden and wolves howled in the valley. One became a warrior, fast and proud. The other became a rune keeper, quiet and strange. They built a ship together. They crossed the Whale Road. And then the gods asked them each to sacrifice something. The warrior his sword, the seer his voice. Only one agreed. The saga wins deeper. Betrayal. A white bear. A stone that bleeds when touched. A love lost to ice. The fire crackles in rhythm with his words. Even the children stay silent. You don't catch every phrase. But the story works through you all the same. Historians still puzzle over the exact role of saga-telling in Viking life. Some think it was purely entertainment. Others call it a kind of oral law, a moral guidebook encoded in legend. But sitting here, legs tucked under you, face warm from fire, you understand the truth. This is how they pass on memory, not just of ancestors, but of values, of shame, of honor, of how not to die stupid. You don't realize the saga has ended until the fire snaps loud and someone exhales sharply beside you. A few people murmur, repeating lines to themselves, tasting the words like stew. Then Asgeir leans forward and tells one more story. It's short, newer. He says there was once a person not born here, not tied to the land, who arrived during a snowstorm. A stranger with strange speech and stranger habits. He worked hard, yes, but always seemed a step behind. The vulva noticed, twice, and though he brought no sword, no gift, no kin, he did something else. He stayed, through blisters, through snow, through sideways glances. He didn't ask to belong, he just kept showing up. And sometimes, Asgeir says, that's the thread the Norns notice first. No one laughs. No one says your name. But you feel 20 pairs of eyes settle on you, then move on. After the stories, a few people linger. Most drift off, wrapped in cloaks, trailing the smell of smoke behind them. You help bank the fire as you set down the last log. Someone drops something beside your foot, a small wooden token carved into the shape of a spiral. The same design the vulva had on her staff. You turn, but there's no one behind you. You pick it up, it's warm. You slip it into your pouch next to the other one. Then you stand. The Longhouse breathes around you. Snow still presses at the walls, but the silence has changed. It's no longer watching you, it's holding you, and for the first time, maybe, so are they. It starts with a drip, then another, barely audible at first, like the distant tap of a wooden ladle against a clay bowl. But you notice it. You sit up in your bedding, rubbing your eyes, and hear it again. Water, melting, outside. The whiteout remains, but the wind has gentled. The snow no longer whips sideways across the air like a furious ghost. Instead, it glistens under a shy, silvery sun, weak and cold, but undeniably there. And from the eaves of the Longhouse, water now drips rhythmically into a wooden bucket. You wouldn't call it spring. No one here would dare. But something has turned. You step outside with the others, faces squinting from the brightness. It's too bright. Almost. After weeks buried under ash-colored clouds and the flicker of firelight. This washed-out glow feels like a torch to the eyes. The air still burns your nose, but it smells cleaner, wetter, like something distant is loosening its hold. People begin to move with different intent. There's no celebration, no music or dancing, but you feel it in the pace of boots, the way shoulders roll looser under fur cloaks, the sudden sharpening of knives that had been left dull all winter. You're told to follow a man named Leaf, silent and broad-shouldered, who leads you to a half-buried shed near the water's edge. He says nothing, just hands you a bundle wrapped in hide. Inside, flax rope, a small mallet, and wooden pegs. You know the answer before you ask the question. Boats, not warships, not yet, just sleek, low river boats, light enough to drag, long enough to carry goods, fish, and occasionally men with sharp ideas. One boat sits half frozen in its cradle, its hull dark with pitch and scars. You run your hand across it. It's warmer than you expect. The others begin clearing snow, checking seams, lifting her frame with quiet reverence. You're assigned to repairs. No complaints, no raised eyebrows. Just a job handed to you like it would be to anyone else. So you work. Your fingers are stiff, your posture clumsy, but the routine sets in quickly. Tap the peg, knot the rope, melt the pitch and press it into the seam, and when it burns your skin through the rag, you don't even flinch this time. You just nod, mutter something resembling a Viking curse, and keep going for hours. You kneel in the cold, mending something meant to float. Later, near dusk, the Jarl calls everyone to gather inside. The Longhouse is warm again, crowded shoulder to shoulder with bodies that smell of smoke, snow, and days of unwashed wool. A fire burns tall, but this isn't a feast. It's something quieter, a rite. Everyone holds a small candle, short, stumpy things made from tallow, saved for special nights. You're handed one too, without ceremony. Its wick is already blackened, used before, lit again. You sit near the back. The Jarl speaks. His voice is low and clear, like wind across still water. He names the dead, not all at once, not in a list, just one by one. Like drops falling into a basin, an old woman, a hunter who went out too far, a child whose name no one has spoken since frost first came. Each name is followed by silence, not prayer, just silence. Then someone places a bowl of water near the fire, and, one by one, people step forward to set their candle into it. Flame meets water, not extinguished, floating. You don't ask what it means, you just watch. The candles spin slowly in their bowls, their reflections dancing across the thatched ceiling like ghosts given shape. When it's your turn, you hesitate, but someone touches your back gently. You move forward, place your candle in the bowl, and say nothing. The flame wavers, but stays lit. You return to your seat, and for the first time, no one watches you for what you are. They simply sit beside you, letting the silence do its work. After the ritual, people linger, a few whisper, some begin to hum an old melody with no real tune, just a rise and fall like breath in the dark. Someone passes you a carved wooden cup filled with a bitter root tea. You sip it. It's horrible. But you don't make a face. The spinning woman sits beside you. She doesn't speak, but she hands you something small, wrapped in a cloth. You open it. Inside, a straw doll, roughly woven, with a spiral sewn into its chest using dark red thread. You look up. She just nods. You don't know what it means, but you tuck it into your pouch beside the other tokens, the carved goat, the spiral pendant. Your pockets are growing heavier and stranger. That night, the Longhouse quiets early. No saga, no music, just breathing. You lie beneath your furs, feeling the ache in your back from boat work, the warmth of the fire at your toes, and the faint scratch of straw poking through your tunic. Someone snores gently nearby. A goat shifts in its sleep. Outside, the snow creaks as it settles, and somewhere far off, an owl calls once, then vanishes into the white. You don't dream, you just sleep, deep, unbothered. And when you wake the next morning, someone has left you a bowl of porridge. No name, no note. Just there, waiting, and somehow. That says more than anything else could. The first thing you notice is the sound. Not crackling fire, not someone coughing into a pelt, not the soft clatter of bone tools being sorted on a floorboard. No, this is sharper. Shk, ching, shk, ching. You recognize it almost immediately, though it takes your sleepy brain a moment to place it. Blades. Being sharpened. You sit up slowly, still wrapped in your blanket of stitched fur and wool. Across the Longhouse, near the fire pit, a handful of men are crouched in a loose circle. Each one works methodically, dragging steel across whetstone in a hypnotic rhythm. Short swords, utility knives, axes. There's no urgency to it, but also no idle chatter. These are preparations, not for survival. For motion. You rise stiffly, stretch, and walk outside. And that's when it hits you. The air is different, colder than you expected, but not as bitter. The wind, soft, and in the far-off distance, barely visible unless you're really looking. The sea. She's waking up. Where the fjord had once been sealed under a thick lid of white, ice now fractures in a long, jagged line through the middle. A narrow strip of black water cuts across the surface, undulating softly with the tide, sending puffs of mist curling upward like sighs from a thawing beast. You walk down to the shore where others are gathered, men, women, even children bundled in layers. No one speaks at first, just the sound of dripping, shifting, cracking. The world is exhaling. Someone beside you murmurs. The ice breaks earlier every year, another adds, or we grow slower. There's no clear answer, but the meaning is the same. Winter is retreating, and that changes everything. Because here, spring isn't gentle. It doesn't arrive in blossoms and bluebirds. It comes with knives being honed, boats being readied, paths reopened, both to friends and enemies. And in the Longhouse, the rhythm shifts. That afternoon, you're called to the boat shed, not with words, just a gesture from one of the men, a tilt of the head, a grunt. You've learned to interpret these inside. The longship rests like a beast in hibernation, its hull still crusted with salt and grime from last season. The carved dragon head at the prow is wrapped in cloth, weather-stained, ceremonial, protected, but even now, it has a presence. You're not asked to admire it. You're handed a brush and a bucket of thick, dark pitch, work. You kneel at the side of the ship and begin spreading the pitch into the seams, sealing it against water, wind, time. It's slow work. Your fingers cramp. The smell burns your nose, but no one hovers over you. You're trusted to do your part. That, more than anything, makes your chest tighten a little with quiet pride. Hours pass. The sun, such as it is, drifts behind gray haze. The mist thickens, clinging to your beard, your eyebrows. When someone finally claps you on the shoulder and gestures toward the Longhouse, you follow without a word, back inside. The atmosphere has shifted. No feasting, no sagas, but the benches have been drawn close. Packs lie against the wall, bundles of rope, dried fish, sealed clay jars. Someone is oiling bowstrings in the corner. Another person is quietly wrapping herbs in linen. They're preparing for something. You watch from the side, not excluded, not included, not yet. That space between being part of the fire and standing just behind the circle. Kettle slides onto the bench next to you. He nudges you with his elbow. They're scouting. 2 days' time. For what? He shrugs. Trade, maybe news. You nod, but you both know what news could mean. The sea may carry messages or threats. Villages to the south, strangers from across the water, or worse, kin who've gone quiet. Later, you sit alone at the hearth, fingers still stained with pitch. The fire is low, around you, quiet movement, someone patching a leather bag, someone else polishing the base of a bronze brooch with a twist of wool cloth. Then, softly, the wool spinner approaches. She doesn't speak. She holds out her hand. In her palm, a small disc, carved from bone, shaped like a leaf, with a single hole at the top for threading. You take it. She nods once, then walks away. You turn it over in your fingers. It's smooth on one side, slightly rough on the other. You don't know what it means, but you know it means something. You slip it into your pouch. Beside the spiral token, the straw figure, the goat carving, your strange collection is growing, each one heavier than its size, each one a step. That night, you dream again. You stand at the edge of the fjord, where the ice meets the open water. The longship floats beside you, anchored but restless. The vulva stands at your side, silent, her face turned away. She doesn't speak, but the wind moves her hair in soft black strands across her shoulder. Far out, on the dark water, a shape moves. You can't tell if it's a boat or a beast. You wake up before it reaches you. Your hands are clenched into fists. You open them slowly, then rise. The sky is still dim, but in the distance, you hear the familiar sound again. Shk, ching, steel on stone. The sharpening continues, and the ice is nearly gone. It begins at dawn, not with horns, not with drums or the clash of steel, just the quiet murmur of boots on packed dirt and the low grunt of men loading gear onto the riverboat. You're already awake, sitting on the threshold of the Longhouse with your legs pulled up to your chest, wrapped in a wool cloak still damp from last night's mist. The boat is going out, not far, just to the neighboring village. They say, a routine trip, a friendly stop, a bit of trade, a bit of talk. But you know better now. In Viking country, nothing is routine. Every journey holds the chance of danger or discovery. You sip warm broth from a wooden bowl and watch the preparations. Barrels of dried fish, cloth-wrapped bundles of flax, a small cask of honey carried like treasure, sacks of oats, bone tools, things that can be given, traded, or shown. Not all of it will return, not all of them might. Either. Kettle is among them. His face is brighter than usual, his tunic newly patched. He sees you watching and waves once, just once, then goes back to tying knots on the stern. You haven't been invited, but you also haven't been told to stay, which leaves you somewhere in between. You finish the broth and stand. You cross the frozen path toward the shoreline, where the boat now waits in the narrow inlet. The ice has broken just enough to let the prow move. Steam rises off the surface in soft curls. Someone's testing an oar, dipping it into the black water and pulling it back with practiced efficiency. The Jarl appears, wrapped in a thick fur cape. He walks the length of the boat once. His eyes sweep across everything: cargo, crew, wind, clouds, sea. Then he nods, and just like that, they begin to board. You hover near the edge, 1 foot on land, 1 foot in decision, and then a voice behind you says, "If you're going, take this." You turn. It's the spinning woman. She's holding a bundle of oiled linen, inside a pair of gloves, lined with rabbit fur, much warmer than what you've been using. You nod. "Thank you." She doesn't smile. "They won't wait." She's right. You tuck the gloves into your belt and step onto the boat. No one cheers. No one nods. But no one stops you. And that's all the permission you need. You find a space near the middle bench, between a man named Ulf and another whose name you've never caught. Both are silent, but both shift slightly to make room. The boat shudders once, then pushes off. The oars dip in, one after another. And suddenly, you're sailing. The water is cold and thick, like ink. It slaps softly against the sides, pulling at the hull like curious hands. The fog hangs low, muffling the world. You row when you're told, hold still when you're not. You pass the coast slowly. Rocks, trees, empty stretches of snow-dusted beach. The occasional hut or fishing rack, long abandoned for winter. Every now and then, you pass a marker, wooden, carved with symbols, boundary stones, direction stones, warning stones. You still can't read them all, but the others glance at them as they pass. Their eyes don't linger. That's a bad sign. No one speaks for hours, until finally, the boat turns into a narrow channel. The trees grow denser. The wind dies down. And then, beyond a bend, you see it. The other village. It's smaller than yours. Only 2 longhouses, a few low buildings ringed by fencing. Smoke rises from one chimney. Chickens peck at the ground near a frozen stream. A child runs across the open yard, chasing a dog. But something's off. Too quiet. No one comes to meet you. The Jarl frowns. You pull up alongside the dock, but no one's waiting there. No sentry, no fisher, no welcome. The crew exchanges glances. Then the Jarl steps off first. 2 others follow. You stay put. Heart tight. After a pause, Kettle hops down too. Then Ulf. Then, almost without realizing it, you. The ground is soft beneath your boots. You tread carefully across the frost-covered planks. The village smells of smoke and damp wood, the kind of smell that usually means life. But here it just smells old, deserted. No, there are signs of use. Tracks in the snow, fresh-cut wood, a pot still steaming near a doorway. But the people, gone. They find the first of them inside the longhouse, not dead, just huddled together, sick. A dozen men and women lying on pallets, wrapped in every fur they own. Faces pale, lips cracked. One has a bandage across his chest, stained with something dark. You stay back, but you watch. The Jarl speaks to the oldest woman, who sits upright, barely. She whispers, points, closes her eyes. You only catch fragments of what's said. Came in the night. Never seen it before. Burns the stomach. The Jarl's jaw tightens. He stands. No trading. One of the younger men protests. But the honey, no, nothing in, nothing out. The tone ends the conversation. You return to the boat with empty hands. No fish, no goods, just questions. You row in silence, and though your body aches and your fingers sting, something else stays with you. how quickly things can change, how fragile life is, even among the strong, and how the sea, though opening, may be carrying more than just melted snow. It may be carrying sickness, or worse. The Longhouse feels heavier when you return. Not colder, not warmer, just heavier. Like the walls have taken a breath and decided not to let it go. Like the rafters know something the rest of you haven't quite admitted yet. The boat slides back into the inlet, bumping softly against the dock. You step off with the others, quiet, tired, sore, and nobody says a word, but they're already watching. A small group has gathered, not out of curiosity, not even concern. It's more like calculation. Their faces don't ask questions. They're reading you, reading the boat, looking for signs, sniffing for change. No cheering, no welcome, not even a nod, just eyes and stillness. You glance back at the Jarl. He steps off the boat, his jaw tight, and speaks a single sentence to one of the waiting men. "Tell the vulva." The man runs. That's when you know. This is more than a routine trip gone sour. This is the start of something wider, and it's already moving. Inside, the Longhouse smells different. The familiar blend of smoke, damp fur, and salted meat is now laced with something sharper, bitter, medicinal. You follow your nose and find the vulva crouched over a clay bowl, steam curling around her face. She's grinding something with a stone pestle, mumbling under her breath, not quite a chant, but not quite speech either. You stand back, unsure if this is a moment meant for others. She doesn't look up, doesn't speak, just gestures. One quick flick of her fingers toward the door, out. So you step back outside, back into the air that somehow feels thinner, like the village is holding its breath. Dinner that evening is quiet. Too quiet. No sagas, no teasing, no sharp laughter over burnt stew, just chewing, swallowing, the occasional clink of a spoon on a wooden bowl. You're seated between kettle and the wool spinner, and neither speaks to you tonight. Not rudely, just occupied, staring into the fire, lost in thought or prayer or memory. You eat slowly, carefully. You notice that the bowls are no longer shared. No communal ladles. Everyone uses their own utensils. Even the goats are tied farther from the hearth. Someone sets a pouch of dried herbs near the entrance, then sprinkles a fine white powder across the floor beams. You catch a whiff of it, sharp, musty, sour. You don't ask what it is. You just stop your breathing until it settles. The Jarl doesn't speak to the Longhouse that night. He leaves before the fire dies down. 3 men following behind him. You watch them go, their silhouettes disappearing into the snow fog beyond the gate. No armor, no banners, just cloaks and purpose. You want to ask where they're headed, but you already know. They're trying to learn what you all might be up against, and how close it already is. That night, you can't sleep. You lie under your furs, eyes tracing the same line on the ceiling beam for what feels like hours. You listen to the fire hiss, the soft snore of a child, the quiet shifting of bodies in sleep. You think of the other village, of the faces you saw there, gray, sunken, slick with sweat despite the cold, of the pot on the fire, still simmering, untouched, of how many villages might already be touched by this thing, moving quietly through smoke, trade, kindness. And you wonder, is it already here, already inside, already in you? You roll over, heart thudding a little harder than usual. You press your hands against your chest, trying to feel something solid. In the morning, new rules appear. No one announces them, but they're everywhere. No one drinks from shared horns. Water is fetched from farther upstream. The bedding near the door is replaced completely. Spoons are burned. Scrubbed floors give off the acrid scent of pine and lye. Even the goats are walked farther from the Longhouse. You're told to help move firewood, but the man who tells you does so with a cloth tied over his mouth. You nod, say nothing, tie one on, and get to work. The masks are made from linen soaked in vinegar and herbs. They stink, they itch, they make your breath taste like pickled moss. But you wear one, everyone does. That afternoon, you're sent with 2 others to the river path to check traps, a simple job. But no one calls anything simple anymore. The woods are silent as you walk. No birdsong, no branches snapping, just boots crunching against wet snow and the occasional cough. You keep your eyes on the trees. You don't know what you expect to see. A stranger, a sickness in the air, smoke on the horizon. You find 3 traps. Only one has anything in it, a small fox, already stiff. The youngest of your group glances at it, mutters something in Old Norse that sounds like a warning, and leaves it untouched. You carry the other traps back, empty, like the silence between words. Back at the Longhouse, the Velva has laid out charms near the door, sprigs of something green tied with red thread, little bundles wrapped in hide. You recognize none of them, except one, a spiral, carved into birch bark, almost identical to the one she once gave you. You touch it, then hesitate, then let your hand drop. That night, you sleep lighter, not out of choice, but because your body won't quite let go. Not yet. You shift, roll, listen to every cough, every murmur, every breeze sneaking in under the thatch. And when you finally do drift off, it's into a dreamless dark that holds you gently but firmly, like a warning, like the calm just before a wave breaks over the side of a boat. You wake before the fire is lit. The Longhouse is still cloaked in blue-gray half-light, that strange hour when nothing feels quite real. The air is thick, unmoving. You shift beneath the firs, waiting to hear the usual sounds, coughs, snoring, someone stomping the snow off their boots. But this morning, there's nothing, only silence. You sit up slowly. Across the room, 3 bedrolls lie empty. One of them is Kettle's. You find him just beyond the Longhouse, sitting on a low stool near the smoke shed. He's bundled in his cloak, hood pulled low, elbows on knees. You walk toward him. His back is hunched. When he turns, his face is pale, paler than usual, and glistening with a thin sheen of sweat. He gives you a weak smile. "Slept poorly," he says, rubbing his chest. You nod, uncertain. His breath fogs quickly. He coughs once, tries to laugh it off, then coughs again. This one deeper, longer, a sound that tightens your stomach. "I'm fine," he says, waving a hand. "Just cold." But it's not just cold, and both of you know it. The Velva is summoned. No one yells, no one panics, but the message passes quietly from mouth to mouth. Within minutes, she's by his side, eyes steady, fingers wrapped around a small pouch of herbs. She says nothing at first, just places one palm on Kettle's forehead, then both hands gently on his cheeks. She tilts his head, looks into his eyes, then she stands and speaks. "Build a shelter beyond the fence. He must be alone for 3 days." No one questions it. No one protests. Even Kettle doesn't argue. He just nods. Once, and stands up on shaky legs. By noon, a small lean-to has been built at the edge of the woods, covered in bark, straw, and stitched hide, just enough to keep the wind off. A sleeping roll, a water jug, a bundle of food wrapped in cloth. Nothing more. You help carry the firewood. You try to smile as you pass it to him. He grins. "I always wanted a place of my own." Then coughs again. The isolation begins. No one touches Kettle. No one steps within 10 paces of his shelter. Even the food is left at a distance, marked by a line drawn in the snow. He collects it when no one is watching. He leaves the empty bowls in the same place. From a distance, you see him pacing, then sitting, then lying flat under the hides, barely moving. Someone says a prayer each night near the fence line. You never see who, but you see the footprints left behind. The rest of the village slows, not stops, just slows. People speak less. Movements are more deliberate, measured, controlled. Even the goats seem quieter. The vulva smokes the inside of the longhouse each night with a pungent mix of dried plants, juniper, maybe, and something sharp like mustard seed. The smell clings to your hair, your blanket, your tongue, but you sleep more deeply now. Strangely enough, it's as if your body, finally understanding what's at stake, has agreed to rest when it can, because soon it might not get the chance. On the second morning, you find something in the snow by the firewood drop, a small wooden carving, a bear, tiny, clumsy, one ear chipped. You pick it up, hold it in your palm. You glance toward the shelter. Kettle is watching you from his place beneath the lean-to. You hold up the carving. He shrugs. "I'm bored," he says. Whittling keeps the hands from panicking. You laugh, just a little, then cough. Only once. You catch the vulva's eye across the yard. She nods slowly. You're fine. For now. The third day is the worst. The weather turns. A wet wind sweeps through the fjord, sending low clouds skimming the treetops. The sky is a bruised gray. You see no movement from Ketel's shelter. By midday, someone speaks aloud what everyone's thinking. "Should we check?" The Jarl answers without looking up. "If it's time, he'll come." And so you wait. The sun dips, the fire is lit. Dinner is served in near silence. Even the children don't fidget tonight. And then, just before the final light slips away, footsteps, snow crunching, slow, uneven. Everyone looks up. Kettle walks through the gate, hands up, eyes tired, face hollow but upright, alive. He stops just short of the fire. The vulva approaches. She studies him again, palms flat on his chest, fingers under his chin. She mutters a few words you don't recognize, then sprinkles something onto his shoulders, a dust that sparkles briefly in the firelight, then fades. She nods once and steps away. The Jarl places a bowl of broth on the bench. Kettle sits, eats. No one speaks for a full minute. Then someone claps once, then again. Then someone laughs, short and sharp, but full of something you'd forgotten you could feel. Relief. The Longhouse breathes again. That night, the tension breaks. It doesn't shatter. It exhales. People talk again, softly at first, then louder. A story is told. A terrible joke is shared. Even the goats bleat at the wrong moment and get a laugh. You eat beside Kettle. He smells faintly of smoke and something sour, but he's warm. He leans close and whispers, 3 days in a box. You'd be surprised what you start to miss. You smile, then ask, what did you miss most? He doesn't even pause. Voices. And suddenly, you realize how quiet it had been, not just in the Longhouse, inside you. You sleep that night with your pouch resting on your chest. It's heavier now. The fish carving, the bear, the spiral, the leaf, the doll. Each one a thread, each one a moment, each one a piece of a life you didn't expect to live, and now don't want to leave. You drift off to sleep slowly, not with fear, but with calm. The sickness came, it brushed the door, but for now, it passed, and tomorrow the boats are going out.